Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to our 189th Capstone Defense. And we welcome Liv Hung, who is here to present the findings from her research capstone. Her supervisor is Professor Martin Waxman, and her second reader is Dr. Alex Sevigny. I will act as the chair of the defense, and Liv, you have 25 minutes to present your findings, after which we will then go through a series of questions for 25 minutes, and then we'll put everybody but the panel into a waiting room, breakout room. We will conclave, make a decision, and then bring you back at that point. Do you have any questions before we start?
No, I guess I'll just share screen.
Yep. So it's 1:03, so you have until 1:30 to make your presentation, and I'm just going to pin you here so that you have the screen. So you are on the clock.
Welcome to my capstone presentation, We're Only Human, How Strategic Communicators Can Lead in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. My name is Liv Hung, and my capstone supervisor is Martin Waxman. Thank you for being here. I would also like to thank my second reader, Dr. Alex Sevigny, and Dr. Terry Flynn for helping us through this program. A quick look at the agenda of the items I'm going to discuss today. This should all be fairly familiar to you. And with that, let's get started. The launch of ChatGPT in November 2022 kickstarted interest as AI went mainstream. Soon, business leaders and regulators asked, how will this impact us? AI is now recognized as a disruptive force that brings both opportunities and challenges. Yet questions around ethics, safety, privacy, and data remain. In recent years, researchers have said AI is on a collision course with the communications field, and we must adapt if we are to stay relevant. Given the imminent disruption, I wanted to understand what the role of the strategic communicator would be. The research problem was around how can we, as strategic communicators, provide leadership in the age of AI. I conducted a literature review to formulate my research questions. First, I looked at the current state of AI. What did industry leaders say about the risks and opportunities? Next, I examined theories from the human-computer relations field to understand human-machine trust. Public relations theory, such as Grunig's excellence model, two-way symmetric communication, and ethics were vital to understanding the value of the strategic communicator. I also looked at the changing media landscape and how it impacted communicators through mis and disinformation. Lastly, the latest results on the communicators' attitudes, skills, and adoption towards AI were reviewed. This led me to my research questions. 1, what are the emerging issues with AI, and how and to what extent do they impact the communications field? 2, how and to what extent can strategic communicators contribute to AI leadership and help mitigate organizational risks? 3, how and to what extent are strategic communicators prepared to upskill in AI and step into an organizational leadership role? I also generated 2 hypotheses. 1, AI issues important to organizational leaders intersect with the areas of expertise strategic communicators provide. And the null of that is that it does not intersect with our areas of expertise. 2, strategic communicators have the skills and competencies to be strategic counselors at the AI decision-making table. And the null of that is that we do not have such skills and competencies. An exploratory case study was designed, and besides the literature review, I also conducted a content analysis and in-depth interviews. The study was limited to Canada, the US, and the UK. For my content analysis, I studied 75 media articles and blog posts which featured technology leaders on AI using a stratified sampling method. For my in-depth interviews, I spoke with 11 industry leaders in AI and communications, and that took place over online video. Looking at the results for the first research question, which asked what are the emerging issues with AI and how and to what extent do they impact the communications field? This word cloud was generated from the coding themes identified through the content analysis of the media articles. AI, risk, and safety, as you can see here, those words were found to be highly co-located, meaning they were often coded together. Thus, AI risk and AI safety were some of the key themes that I found. Mis and disinformation, regulation and governance, transparency, and job displacement were some of the other more frequently occurring themes found in the content analysis. From the interview data, I also found a lot of the same issues and themes as identified in the content analysis. You can see through this graph here, the highest number of themes found were related to AI risk, but also on the flip side, opportunities were also frequently discussed. Ethics and transparency, two issues sort of related to the ethical side of this topic, were also commonly found. And then further along the graph, you can see other more specific risks that are quite related to public relations, such as risks to reputation, trust, stakeholder relationship, and crisis. I wanted to pull up some of the qualitative data as well relating to this research question. So here are some sample quotes from leading technology leaders and what they're saying about AI. The first quote here is from Bill Gates of Microsoft, where he is talking about the potential for AI to provide great opportunities to help humankind. So by increasing productivity or helping reduce inequalities. The second quote features Sam Altman of OpenAI, and he's talking about job displacement, how this technology may eliminate a lot of current jobs, but it could also help us create new ones, which might be better. The third quote features Sundar Pichai of Google, and he is concerned about AI potentially causing mis and disinformation at scale. And he does say that we do need to think about AI safety. And one last quote from the interviews that summarizes the impact of AI on our industry as well as across industries. This person noted that it is going to be one of the most transformational issues facing many industries over the next few years, and that it's really important to think through the impact of the technology on our audiences, our stakeholders, and basically on everything that we are doing. And a lot could go wrong, especially from a reputational perspective. Moving on to the results for the second research question, which was how and to what extent can strategic communicators mitigate risks and provide AI leadership to their organizations? At a high level, the interview participants recognize that AI is here, and we as communicators need to lead the conversation around it. And then what I found through the interview data was 8 areas of leadership where strategic communicators could lead by managing AI risks for their organizations. And I've listed them here to the left. This table, it's kind of small here, but it has the details in my paper. So for example, the first item on the left, crisis planning issues and risk management, I've identified a corresponding quote from the interview where one of the participants suggested that we could be preparing crisis plans related to AI-related incidents as a way to provide leadership to our organizations at this time. The other items, such as change management, stakeholder engagement, reputation management, these are familiar, or more so to us who work in strategic communications. I did want to bring your attention to the last two, which may be somewhat perhaps outside our traditional view of what we do. So the first one, participating in AI development. This came up during the interview data where some of the participants said this is a great opportunity for us to provide leadership through ensuring the tone of voice. So for example, if your company is building a custom chatbot using AI, it would be a great place for the strategic communicator to step in and ensure the tone of voice and the messaging is aligned with the organization's brand. And also to consider how adopting this technology might impact stakeholders such as customers. And to be the one who works with the tech team and asks ethical questions such as around bias in the training algorithm towards this chatbot and privacy concerns. For the last item, training and AI education, this is an area of opportunity to lead through supporting a culture that is open to learning and communicating change effectively to employees so that they understand why they're being asked to adopt AI or to learn about it. For the results of RQ3, which was how and to what extent are strategic communicators prepared to upskill in AI and step into an organizational AI leadership role. The interview participants felt in general there was greater enthusiasm and awareness of AI, but overall, our industry isn't ready. They found a lack of technical knowledge and that many practitioners had trouble understanding and evaluating AI tools. The participants also noted a generational difference in the attitudes, adoption, and skills in AI, which is problematic as they noted that senior leaders are expected to take the lead on AI-related issues. They also noted the organization can play a role in learning and adoption if there is a supportive culture that encourages experimentation. Stigma in using AI apps would prevent learning. The interview participants also felt AI adoption depends on the opportunity to try tools and to acquire more skill. For example, they noted that if somebody had poor prompting skills, it would lead to worse AI outputs, which then reinforces bias against using AI. And for job displacement, they felt that AI won't take away jobs, but rather those who know how to use it will displace those who don't. And it's more about working alongside AI. And finally, the interview participants agreed that there's an opportunity for us to lift the value communicators bring to their organizations through leveraging AI to augment the work we already do. Moving on to the discussion for the first research question. What I wanted to do for the discussion was I wanted to visualize the results to RQ1, which is about the intersection of AI and PR. I created this model, which outlines the 3 levels of AI PR issues using a macro, meso, and micro lens. The macro level is concerned with the bigger picture, so large-scale societal impact on the wider economy or social disruption due to job losses. The meso level looks at the organizational level of impacts, so those could be AI-related crises, reputation management, change management, or looking at how it's transforming jobs within the organization. At a micro level, that examines the level of the individual communication practitioner and the industry as a whole. So how will this disrupt our industry and how does it impact, for example, how would we mentor future generations or opportunities to increase our value? So through this model, you can see where the AI issues intersect public relations, on what level, and how those levels overlap. So in short, I hope this visual will spark discussion as we can plainly see just how much AI is going to impact our field. For the second research question, in terms of discussion, I wanted to talk about those identified areas of leadership. What I did here was I compared my identified areas against the global capability framework, which was led by Anne Gregory and was created for the Global Alliance. And also I wanted to compare my findings to the work that was in the paper Humans Needed More Than Ever, which was published last year, also by Anne Gregory and her colleagues. The areas of leadership that I identified on the left, they lined up quite nicely to the 3 major capability categories that are found in the global capability framework. And those are under communication, organization, and professional. So what that tells me is that we can provide leadership in AI because it aligns with what our profession believes are our core capabilities. We should theoretically have the leadership ability if we are practicing our profession at the highest level. I then compared these areas of leadership and how much AI-enabled tasks can help do the work. My results are in support of what Gregory and her colleagues found, which is that AI is helping enable communicators to do many of the tactical tasks. For example, helping us generate social media content, draft first drafts of press releases, or conduct online monitoring. For strategic work, currently AI is assisting us, but not to the same degree, although this will likely change. Some areas, however, I found are not really replaced or reduced by AI. So for example, that would be providing ethical guidance, developing partnerships and deepening relationships, providing good judgments, and seeing the big picture. Those are all solidly still in the domain of the human strategic communicator. The results of RQ3 pointed that we were not quite ready to step into that leadership position. So we aren't ready yet. How do we get there? I created a pathway to AI leadership from my results. So starting at the bottom of the pyramid, we should first be practicing excellence modeled after Grunig's theory. That is, we're not reduced to doing tactical work, but we're helping foster key relationships for our organization, and we're trusted to keep our organization safe. We're doing ongoing landscape monitoring, and we're acting as the ethics counselor. Next, we need to acquire basic AI knowledge, what it is, how it works, what it can and cannot do. And up next on the pyramid is that we must embrace AI as a tool and a partner agent. That means we need to be hands-on and approach AI with a positive attitude. And only through such way could we actually learn to adopt how AI will work best with us. And then the next step towards the top of the pyramid is a seat at the table. And I know that this is part of excellence theory, but I did separate it out because I think it's really important that we actually have influence over the dominant coalition or have a seat at the table so that we can put our voice to the concerns that this technology poses. In the backdrop of all this, the organization should have an open and supportive culture that encourages dialogue and two-way symmetrical communication so that these difficult conversations can be had. And then thus, hopefully we can attain AI leadership if we follow these steps. Going back to my hypotheses very quickly, I think my results confirm H1 as that these issues in AI, and they're important to organizational leaders, they do intersect with a lot of what we do. But for H2, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It looks like we have some of these skills through the identified areas of leadership. However, we are still needing to upskill more in order to get there. So for limitations, bias is something I try to reduce or eliminate. However, my interview participants were mostly within my own professional network, or they were referred through networks of others that I know. There was a lack of diversity in the content analysis for the chosen technology leaders. They were all male and mostly white, and my interview participants didn't encompass the full cultural and language diversity of the countries I was studying, so therefore issues in AI relating to DEI may have been underrepresented. And this is a small single case study, so I only interviewed 11 participants, and my article sample size was 75, so results cannot be generalized. So getting back to the research problem, which is how can we lead in the age of AI? Well, I think we can provide leadership on 3 levels. On the macro level, which is the bigger picture, continue to drive AI and PR scholarship. We don't quite have as much academic research as, say, for example, marketing and AI. And there's an opportunity there to drive more research as well as participate. So if you see a survey concerning these issues, it'd be great if you participated in it. Continue to drive the conversation about the intersection of these 2 topics. Just as, you know, a lot of experts in our field have driven the conversation around mis and disinformation, and now how AI is going to make that even more exponentially challenging for us. We need to speak up about this in the circles that we run in. And then thirdly, support regulations for safe and ethical AI development. I think this is very, very important in order to keep everybody safe as we adopt this technology. On the organizational level or meso level of leadership, we should be the one to help evaluate the risk the technology poses to our organizations. Does it align with our values, and what are the impact on our stakeholders? Be the trusted leader in the areas of opportunities and take a stab at drafting AI policies. Help facilitate those difficult conversations, and then follow the pathway to help attain leadership within your organization on this issue. I also think it's really important to advocate for more training resources, as that is one of the key challenges I kept finding in the literature review as well as in my interview about the lack of time and budget, and help consider AI with a DEI lens for your organization. On a micro or individual level, everyone should be practicing the industry best practices, and a number of our public relations associations have published information on this. Continue to learn through formal methods such as taking courses, and informal methods in participating in online conversations and following thought leaders. You should look for ways to strategically adopt AI into your workflow and continue to experiment with different tools as they come out. And lastly, I think it's important to provide mentorship to the more junior professionals coming up the ranks. that was one of the concerns that was found in my results, is that there's a fear where juniors will be more easily replaced through some of the tactical for some of the tactical tasks. So I think it's important for us as strategic communicators to continue to provide that mentorship and help guide the younger people along the way. For future studies, it would be great to conduct a follow-up study across the US, UK, and Canada on our practitioners to understand their challenges, attitudes, adoption level, and skill in AI. I would like to see a study that focuses on interviewing CEOs to understand what their issues and challenges are and opportunities with AI in their organization, and how they expect the CCO to help them navigate this. Further explore generational differences found in practitioners in their levels of trust and adoption and attitudes and skill levels towards AI. And then also look at how trust might be impacted between human and AI as AI's abilities and level of interactivity and their communication styles become more sophisticated. And then for my own next steps, I would like to share the study through my professional networks, such as LinkedIn, and through my social media contacts, and apply to speak at various industry seminars and conferences, and look at what publishing options might be. So in conclusion, I conducted a study on how communicators can lead in the age of AI. I found significant overlaps between AI issues that concern communications on 3 levels: macro, meso, and micro. And I found there was an opportunity for us to provide leadership, but we need to take more steps to get there. And if we do, we have an opportunity to increase the value of our profession. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I just want to send a shout out to all my MCM 15 colleagues, my friends. You guys are the best group to have ever done this with. I wish you all your best luck for those who are still to come. And of course, want to thank my colleagues as well, and clients, colleagues at Coldwater, and my clients that I work with. And that's it. I'm going to turn this back to you, Terry.
Thank you so much, Liv. That was a excellent presentation, some very interesting findings. And first up in your questioning is Professor Waxman.
Yeah, thanks and congratulations. I agree with Terry. Excellent. So many insights, and really it was a pleasure working with you. You really dug deeply into the research, and your curiosity helped you uncover things that I think are really important for the profession. And you provided a lot of insightful, very thoughtful recommendations for us to be able to hopefully have a leadership position when it comes to AI and the C-suite and organizations. I also really thought your models were interesting, and it's too bad we don't have time to delve into them more deeply, because they really give us almost a way forward. Anyway, so congrats, thank you. My first question is, do you think generative AI, as the new intermediary between organizations and the publics that they're trying to reach, will improve or diminish symmetrical communications, and why?
Oh,
I know
that's
it's a tough one,
Martin. I wish I had a crystal ball. I don't know if it will improve symmetrical communication, because I feel like it's going to be a tool that helps us become more efficient in one way. I don't know about the listening part of it. Like, I'm not sure that it helps us in that two-way conversation, that we're really using it to help us take in. Maybe AI, not through the generative AI, but through AI research models and the data analysis, using those AI type tools will give us better insight, because then we're actually taking social monitoring data and listening and understanding and finding those themes, and that will enable more of the two-way. I'm not totally sure, and I think, there's an example recently with Air Canada and the chat bot that got them into all kinds of trouble. And that, I don't think that enabled it in that sense. So I'm not enthusiastic that it's there yet. Although I think generative AI is a great tool for us that will help us hone and refine our messaging, help us become more efficient. But I don't think it's quite there yet to enable what we truly envision as two-way symmetrical communication, if that
Great.
makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you. I thought that was a great answer. And hadn't, you know, you brought up some great points, so thank you.
Dr. Sedney.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Dr. Flynn. First, Liv, congratulations on a really good thesis defense presentation. I should say capstone defense presentation. Although I will say that you've done so much work here that I would say it's very close to qualifying for the thesis. So that's great. Now, I think I agree with Martin that your data is very interesting, and the analysis is thorough, but maybe you could actually to build on what Martin was saying, maybe you could unpack what you propose as a way forward for the profession, because I think it would be interesting to have. I think your models, as you said, are some of the most interesting things that you talk about. So if you could pick a highlight and describe it for us here, what would it be? And maybe you could quickly take a minute or two and walk us through a model for how AI can change workflow or future of the profession.
Yeah, so I think when I came up with the first visual, which was the diagram showing the 3 levels of analysis,
Yep.
that was really to help those of us in the profession who are saying, well, I don't see how this is going to impact us. You know, that's happening over here. So what I wanted to do was bring that to the forefront and say, okay, well, this is how it's actually impacting you. Like, you know, on the high level, economical change is going to impact everybody in our organizations. You know, whether you're going to have a job, that's going to come down to that. So for organizations who are looking at how to grapple with this, there's like a whole plethora of risks to manage and ethical questions. And it comes down to, you know, the question of how do you adopt this? Because you know, a lot of what I found in the interview was that it's not a question of if we're adopting, because if you don't adopt, you're going to be left behind. So it's a matter of how do we adopt this, and now how do we analyze the risks, and how do we look at, okay, how is, so that chatbot example again, if I am to use that to help alleviate the customer service workload, then I better make sure this chatbot, first of all, is trained well, that it's going to give the right answer. So in the Air Canada case, it did not, because unfortunately that person had asked about bereavements and whether there's some sort of a refund or something you can qualify for. And then the chatbot said, yes, you can. And it went to the courts, right? So this impacts is on the legal perspective. And then there's a whole other, you know, can of worms if you're using generative AI to help you draft social media content or put out videos. There's those copyright issues, you know, that's going to bring you into, again, legal issues. There's other things where if you are, again, using generative AI that hasn't looked at things from a DEI lens, and now it's outputting images or videos or whatever it is in a way that people could find possibly offensive. And another good example of this is it happened to Google, right? With their, I think it was their Gemini generative AI chat bot, where it was creating overly corrected, diverse images for things that were historically incorrect. So you can see where from a very high level, from a job level and job displacement and disruption, where this will impact us, but then also to the micro level, how it actually impacts how we do our work. And this is not even touching on any of the mis and disinformation stuff, where the level of trust, where people put in what they see now, is completely been thrown out of whack. And we've just seen this with the Kate Middleton situation, right? Where everyone's saying, well, that's generative AI. So sorry, I'm going on a long-winded answer here. I'm not sure if I've answered your question, but where we should go forward, I outlined that in the pyramid model of individuals where we should go forward. And I think, I know we've been fighting so hard as an industry to get that seat at the table to prove our value, and we're building upon Grunig's kind of work. So I wanted to take that as a foundation and then layer in what else do we need to do to be a part of this conversation and to help drive the conversation. I think my point is for people to not be afraid of this, because at the end of the day, it's not like everyone knows where this is going, or no one has a crystal ball. But if we can be there to ask those questions to help our organizations manage those risks, and we're providing that ethical lens that people who are developing this stuff aren't necessarily doing, then I think we're doing our jobs.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Oops, yeah. And
Yeah. We'll come back.
Okay. Interesting time. All right.
Okay. Yep. So I have a question. Interesting. I'm getting texts from Liv right now saying that whole issue with her PowerPoint, she was been taken over by an AI avatar. And so this is not Liv that is actually given this presentation. It's a Microsoft funded avatar that is taken over. No, I'm joking. So
I'm actually surfing right now, Terry.
My question relates to ethics, and interesting that we're, in our focus in our applied ethics class this term is all about looking at what are the policy guidelines, ethical frameworks that we could lead the discussion within the function and organizations as well, and everybody's going to develop a policy around it. So what's the connection between what we do, what AI can do, and the ethical imperative that we strive for each and every day?
Yeah, I think the ethical decision-making tools that if we've gone and taken the course like I have in the MCM, I feel like that actually provides a really good grounding, because there's different ethical decision-making models that you can go through, right? We could look at, for example, is it benefit for all? How many people is it benefit? The pros and cons, and then you're also looking at values, values of the organization, your own moral values. All of those things can help sort of have this ethical decision-making tree, if you will. And I think that should be applied to the questions. And if the organizations aren't asking those questions, then we should be the ones asking those questions. Like, there's so many questions about, data is one of the big things that drives these AI apps. Without the data to train those algorithms, there is no AI. So first of all, the data set, there's ethical questions around the use of the data, who owns the data, how long you keep the data for, and then the integrity of the data set itself. If the data set is biased, and now we're training some algorithm to make decisions on this data set, and the decisions might be very high risk, high stake things that relate to people's health, that relate to people's criminal records, or things of that nature that will impact somebody's life. Well, I really hope that people who are doing the development and doing this training and implementing this, they are asking these questions and they're vetting that. So for us as practitioners, if we are going to adopt new tools in our organization, then we also need to ask our vendors who are providing those tools, where does your data come from? If I am using a generative AI app and I put in my organization's data, is that being used to train this further, or does it get kept? And then is there consent to do that? There's just a whole whack of issues that are related to ethics in terms of implementing AI. And there's those blind spots where, people who are tech people involved in this, they're not necessarily thinking about those things.
All right, thanks. So a quick round, second questions. Martin, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned a whole number of barriers to the adoption of AI. So technical knowledge, culture, generational differences. Which of those barriers, or which of any of the barriers that you mentioned, do you think is the one that will be the hardest to overcome? And how could we maybe overcome it?
Yeah, that is tough. I think some of the basic ones is the time and the budget, those resource barriers. And that becomes an excuse. And that's why I do say in the recommendations, we need to advocate for the budget and for the time, because if everyone's stressed all the time and they don't have budget, they don't have time to do what they already are supposed to do, it's very hard to then motivate someone to be like, okay, I'm sorry, you need to take, a half day seminar to learn about something where you feel like it's philosophically over there and it's not affecting what I'm doing right now, this moment. But that's the myopia we need to watch out for, because, and I believe, some of us in this room believe this as well, that we as a profession may have missed the boat on the first round of when social media came out. And I can't fully say this because I was on that marketing side, right, where we fully embraced it. But the thing is, you don't know that it's bypassed and you don't know the long-term implications when it's already happened. So the time is now to start getting those resources and start getting those budgets so that we can actually have a plan for people. If they need the time to train on something, then they get that. Or if they want to try a trial of some tool, there's budget to do that. So I think that one is challenging because people are always entrenched in their work. But if we can overcome that, that'll make a big difference.
No, a
Right.
great answer.
So we're going to do an audible. So we're going to go to the gallery and ask the gallery if they have any questions. Oh, you afraid? They're all afraid. It's like, oh my God, if I ask one, like they're going to ask me when I present. Come on, let's get somebody that's. Wow. What is it? You're like first year students. Come on, somebody's got to have
They're
one
just bored
question.
of my of my thing.
I doubt it. I
Well,
doubt it.
well, in the absence of, we wanted to give the gallery a chance because we know this is a hot topic. But in the absence, in your silence, I will proceed with my second question. You use the term leadership, and I like that term because for me, AI is a human technology, right? It's and we are in the human business, the people business. So how do we get that message across to communicators? Like when you talk to people, what was the sense or from your own experience, like what's your sense of that? How do we express to communicators that this is their chance to have leadership because this is a human technology?
Yeah, I think from the interview participants, they are all in agreement that, because they are people who are well versed in this field and in AI, they also agree that it's a leadership opportunity. But when you're talking to sort of, your average regular practitioner who may not be as well versed in this, I think repetition of the discussion is going to somewhat, I think it will stick at some point. And I think that, in the presentations that I've made outside of this about this topic, people are fascinated by it. And I think they do get excited. They just don't always know how or what to do or where the resources are. Or maybe there's just too much and they don't have time to weed it out. So there is that sense that people are listening, that tide is starting to change. And maybe before there was more of a fear where this will replace our jobs. But I think now people are starting to see the potential of it. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we give seminars and the more we have LinkedIn discussions, the more people will be like, yeah, this is actually really exciting. And these are tools that we can use to give us better insights to back up our decision making. Because that's also been a criticism of this field, is that, less of the quantitative sort of metrics, being able to prove our performance. But now maybe we have access to tools that will more readily help us build up our cases to do whatever recommendations we want to do, and then come back to it at the end to our leaders and say, hey, look, I moved the needle, and this was the goal. I'd use this and I've moved the needle. And I think that's that's an exciting opportunity.
Kevin has a question.
If I'm allowed to ask, if we still have time. Yeah. So you obviously did a ton of research in the domain of AI for your capstone. I thought it was a great capstone, by the way. Congratulations. One of the threats that you identified was the levels of mis and disinformation that this technology is capable of producing. I can see that effect on a societal level being massive. Just the impact it would have on trust with organization, public relationships, between groups of people. What are your thoughts on the methods that are currently being developed to deal with the potential for misinformation and disinformation?
Yeah, that's one of my biggest fear. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with this technology. And there are some technical solutions I know that have been developed and are in development, where, for example, if you are, say you're an organization or you manage a celebrity or somebody like that, where you have a lot of original imagery and videos, there is apparently technology now where you can embed into that content, and it prevents AI technology from being able to manipulate it, and prevents it from being used in other further algorithmic training. So that's sort of on the technical side, but I think that's going to be an ongoing battle, because there's always, as soon as there's one development and then there's going to be the next. So that's something to keep an eye on. I think it's a really, really hard one, because we can see the impact already. Like I mentioned the Kate Middleton thing, because that's where we're seeing this in real time, where it's almost like anything they put out is not convincing people. So it's almost like you need to prepare in advance to build up your reputation to a point where it is so strong that it can withstand these things, and that you have a clear crisis strategy and clear communication if something like this, if your brand or your organization is under attack and there's false imagery or false information circulating, that you already have a strategy in place to kind of help circumvent that, and you've kind of build up enough strong relationships as well that help you back that up and minimize that damage. But it's terrifying, and not to even mention the impact on elections that are going to be coming up. So all in all, I think it's just making our jobs a lot tougher, and that trust environment is just going to weaken.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, I'm going to open up a breakout room and put everybody, Alex, myself, and Martin in it, and we will get back to you when we've come to a conclusion. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. Thank you, Liv, for your wonderful presentation.